الحقيقية وذلك جراء القصف الإسرائيلي.
And we have an excellent article from the Telegraph here, which says Putin's regime may be closer to a Soviet collapse than we think. Ukraine is slowly losing the 3-year conflict on the battlefield. Russia is slowly losing the economic conflict at a roughly equal pace. The Kremlin's oil export revenues are too low to sustain a high-intensity war, and nobody will lend Vladimir Putin a kopeck. Russia's overheated, military Keynesian war economy looks much like the dysfunctional German war economy of late 1917, which had run out of skilled manpower and was holed below the waterline after 3 years of Allied blockade, as the logistical failures of the Ludendorff offensive would later reveal. Putin's strategic victory in Ukraine was far from inevitable a fortnight ago, and it is less inevitable now after the Assad regime collapsed like a house of cards, shattering Putin's credibility in the Middle East and the Sahel. He could do nothing to save his sole state ally in the Arab world. The limits of Russian military power have been revealed, said Tim Ash, a regional expert at Blue Bay Asset Management and a Chatham House Fellow. Turkey is now master of the region. Turkish forces had to step in to rescue stranded Russian generals. Even if Putin succeeds in holding on to his naval base at Tartus, a big if, this concession will be on Ottoman terms and sufferance. Putin now goes into Ukraine peace talks from a position of weakness, said Mr. Ash. That economy held up well for 2 years, but this 3rd year has become harder. The central bank has raised interest rates to 21% to choke off an inflation spiral. The economy cannot exist like this for long. It's a colossal challenge for business and banks, said German Gref, Sberbank's chief executive. Sergei Chemisov, head of the defense giant Rostec, said the monetary squeeze was becoming dangerous. If we continue like this, most companies will essentially go bankrupt. At rates of more than 20%, I don't know of a single business that can make a profit, not even an arms trader, he said. The resurrection of the Soviet military-industrial complex, to borrow a term from Pierre-Marie Meunier, the French intelligence analyst, is cannibalizing the rest of the economy? Some 800,000 of the young and best educated have left the country. The numbers slaughtered or maimed in the meat grinder are approaching 500,000. Russia's digital minister says the shortage of IT workers is around 600,000. The defense industry has 400,000 unfilled positions. The total labor shortage is near 5 million. Anatoly Kovalev, head of Zelenograd Nanotechnology Center, said his industry was crippled by lack of equipment and could not replace foreign supplies. There is a shortage of qualified specialists, engineers, technologists, developers, designers. There are practically no colleges and technical schools that train personnel for the industry, he said. Total export earnings from all fossil fuels were running at about $1.2 billion a day in mid-2022. They have fallen for the last 10 months consecutively and are now barely 600 millions. The Kremlin takes a slice of this for the budget, but it is far too little to fund a war machine gobbling up 1/10 of GDP in one way or another. Oil tax revenues slumped to $5.8 billion in November, based on a Urals price averaging near $65 a barrel. That price could fall a lot further. Putin is raiding the National Wealth Fund to cover the shortfall. Its liquid assets have fallen to a 16-year low of $54 billion. Its gold reserves have dropped from 554 to 279 tons over the last 15 months. The fund is left with illiquid holdings that cannot be crystallized, such as an equity stake in Aeroflot. Russia can get around technology sanctions, but its systems are configured to Western semiconductors. These chips cannot easily be replaced by Chinese suppliers, even if they were willing to risk U.S. secondary sanctions, which most are not. The chips are bought at a stiff premium on the global black market and are unreliable. Ukrainian troops have noticed that Russian Geran-2 drones keep spinning out of control. The Washington Post reports that laser-guided devices on Russia's T-90M tanks have mysteriously disappeared, greatly reducing capability. The industry ministry has been trying to develop analogs to replace chips from Texas Instruments, Aeroflex, and Cypress, but admitted in October that all 3 tenders had failed. Alexei Novoselov from the circuits company Melander said Russia could not obtain the insulator technologies needed to make chips of 90 nanometers or below. It is the dark ages. The U.S. tightened the noose 3 weeks ago, imposing sanctions on Gazprom Bank and over 50 Russian banks linked to global transactions. This has greatly complicated Russia's ability to trade energy and buy technology on the black market. It briefly crashed the ruble, now hovering at around 100 to the dollar. Chinese banks have stopped accepting Russian Union Pay cards. The Chinese press says exporters have pulled back from Russian e-commerce sites, such as Yandex or Wildberries, because payment fees through third parties no longer cover thin profit margins. Some have been unable to extract their money from Russia and are facing large losses. Few foresaw the sudden and total collapse of the Soviet regime, though all the signs of economic decay and imperial overreach were there to see by 1989. Putin's regime is not yet at this point, but it would only take one more change in the Middle East to bring matters to a head. If the Saudis again decide to flood the world with cheap crude to recoup market share, as many predict, oil will fall below $40 and Russia will spin out of economic control. The Ukraine war may end in Riyadh. And back to Syria. Israel has struck at the basing location of the missile boats of the Syrian Navy in the port of Latakia. According to local media reports, the Latakia port was struck on the night of December 9th. The published footage shows 6 destroyed Soviet-made Project 205 Mosket missile boats. Due to their condition, it is difficult to determine their modification accurately. In general, it is known that the USSR sold 16 Project 205 Mosquito boats to Syria. One of them was sunk by the Israeli Navy on October 6, 1977, and 2 more were decommissioned in 1997. Open data shows that 13 boats remained in the Syrian fleet before the strike. 3 205Es, 5 205ERs, and the same number of 205Us. Analyzing satellite imagery over time, we can see that 10 boats were based at the Latakia base, but it is worth noting that some of them could have been decommissioned. In addition, as of December 2024, they could have changed their deployment port. It is unknown whether other boats that could have been based in Latakia as of December were affected by the strike, and the fate of the boats stationed in Tartus is also unknown. The Project 205 Mosket boats have long been the backbone of the Syrian Navy's combat force. It also included a Project 150 AE patrol ship, which could have been destroyed during the strike. A massive Israeli strike on the Meza air base in Damascus destroyed several helicopters and damaged elements of the air defense complex. The strike was carried out after control of the air base was transferred to opposition forces. Israel has struck the air base before, but this time the attack was unprecedented in scale. The images show the destroyed French-made Aerospatiale SA-342 Gazelle helicopters.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week, it's 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.